Yo, what's up, man? It's your boy MVP JT here, man. We live. I know y'all miss us. We miss y'all. We want to say thank y'all for being on this ride with us, man. On another episode of MVP University, episode number 18, man. And as y'all already know what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about TCU, UGA. But we also going to talk about how TCU, Michigan had the game, but TCU just outperformed them, and how CJ Stroud executed the perfect game-winning drive, but it was wide left. Man, Professor, like, what was your thoughts when you saw that?
So Ohio State was interesting because I went back and listened to a couple podcasts that kind of broke the game down.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening to Cover 3, which is one of my favorites. And I was listening to Bud Elliott. He gave like every reason that TCU could win the game. And listening to it like retroactively.
TCU or Ohio State?
TCU.
Okay.
You mentioned TCU Michigan first. So everything he said is exactly like they forced JJ McCarthy to try to win that game.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't do it. JJ McCarthy talked about that 3-3 stack and said they go get a dose of Big Ten. Well, that was the most Big 12 game that you'd ever want to see. And despite the score, what TCU did well was, number one, they really did a good job of limiting Donovan Edwards' explosive run. Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum are not the same running back.
True.
Okay, Blake is more, here go 2, here go 3, here go 8, here go 4. Donovan is 1, no gain, -1, 35-yard run. And those slants on that 3-3-5 stack, I was surprised at how much trouble Michigan's offensive line had blocking those slants. They didn't know. I mean, like, TCU was like, listen, we're going to run blitz all night. JJ and Ronnie Bell and Cornelius Johnson, y'all guys, see if you can beat us. So, as far as Ohio State is concerned, excuse me, the back end of the defense, they had that game, and secondary let them down. And I felt like if anything would cost Ohio State that game is that secondary. I thought Ohio State's defensive line played well.
Very well. Played better than what I thought they was going to play, honestly.
That's the best game they've had all season. Probably, I would take that back. Maybe they played better against Penn State, but they played, and I felt pretty good about Ohio State being able to block Georgia's D line. I was going back and forth with a dude on one of these Facebook groups I'm in, and he said, "Well, you sound like an Ohio State fan." I said, as a matter of fact, no. In fact, Ohio State may be one of my least favorite college teams, but I know they got 5 guys that are going to probably make NFL rosters on their O-line. And a couple of them are going to probably be early round draft picks. But it's like secondary let them down. And we were texting during the game. Even though they lost, that is the way I've been waiting all season for Ohio State to play. That's the level that I've wanted to see them play with. Unfortunately,
that's the level that if they would have played like that all year, they would have hands down been the number 1 team in the nation. Hands down. And here's something I want to interject real quick. Ohio State did something to Georgia's defensive line that no one has yet to do. They had them rattled because every other play, CJ is rolling out the pocket and setting back up. Georgia's used to a quarterback dropping, 3 to 7 yard drop and staying in the pocket instead of rolling out.
Listen,
That caused Georgia's defensive line a lot of issues because they could not get to CJ. And if TCU can at least mimic just a little bit, this is gonna be an interesting national title game.
listen, CJ Stroud did his Kirk Franklin. For all y'all that didn't think I could roll out and dodge pressure, for all y'all that didn't think I could run, well, let me hit you. Man, listen, all week, the only thing you heard was CJ Stroud struggles with pressure. CJ Stroud doesn't elude pressure very well. CJ Stroud doesn't feel pressure very well. CJ Stroud panics in the pocket. That's all you heard all week. And he proved everyone wrong. And I'm gonna tell you exactly what CJ Stroud did in that game. CJ Stroud, in my opinion, made himself the consensus number 2 pick in the NFL draft.
Wow.
Yes.
Bryce
is going 1.
And okay, Bryce going to Houston.
And when we talk about the draft, I'll share my nitpicky concerns about Bryce.
Okay.
And I'll just give you 2 names real quick: Kyler Murray and Robert Griffin III. I just 5'10", 185 makes me nervous in the NFL. And he's not a freaky fast athlete like either one of those guys are.
Correct.
He's not. Now he won't play on a crappy turf like Robert Griffin III, but I don't want to go down that road yet. But CJ, I think from a ball placement, accuracy, anticipation perspective, he's as good as Bryce. I don't think his arm is as elite, but in the right scheme, it's good. And it's a quarterback-driven league. And if the Bears end up with the second pick, if they're smart, which the Bears usually are not during the draft, they will trade that pick for more assets because their roster's cheeks and they need picks.
Yeah.
So
honestly though, I think if the Bears stay second from just looking, they lost a lot of people on their defense, so they may stay at number 2 and get a Will Anderson or a Jalen Carter. You know what I'm saying? Hypothetically, because their offense is not the greatest offense, but it's good enough to produce points. They can't stop nobody.
I agree with that. But this offense,
they can't stop nobody.
They can't. I agree, but I think you can get. Comparable value. You may not be able to get. Okay, in my opinion, Jalen Carter, who I said I thought he was the best player on Georgia's defense last year, and Will Anderson are outstanding prospects. But I'm not prepared to say they're generational enough. Like Jalen Carter coming out of Georgia, he ain't Aaron Donald. When Aaron Donald was coming out of Pitt. He's not Ndamukong Suh. So I think if you're the Bears, okay, so you may not, you may be able to go within a top 150 picks and get maybe 2 guys who can produce what you probably get from Will Anderson. And maybe same thing for Jalen Carter. But y'all, we're gonna talk about the national championship game, I promise. But if you're the Bears, you need to, as my late father would say, you need to know that that Justin Fields is gonna be your guy. And the way you do that is give him pieces. And you just can't listen. There's gobs of history and data points that show when you build around your quarterback, you'll know within a year or 2 if this is the guy. And every franchise that's been successful has done it. Now, I don't trust the Bears to develop a young quarterback because they've never done it. But Fields may be special enough to do it without that. So, but yeah, I do. I think CJ. impressed a team enough. We may need to trade up and get the second pick so we can have CJ Stroud. I really do. I think he was fantastic. That's the best I've ever seen him play. Like I didn't know he had that.
CJ, I did. I knew CJ this entire time was going to be this was a show me game. This was a prove it game for him. This was the game that he had to show the NFL scouts and all the doubters who he really is. He should have won the Heisman, in my opinion. Last year,
I don't know.
Last year, no, I ain't talking about this. I'm talking about last year.
When,
last year, he was better. When Bryce won it, yes, Bryce was. I know CJ was better than Bryce, in my opinion.
I can actually see that argument.
You know what I'm saying? Like CJ was the better quarterback last year over Bryce, but you know what I'm saying? Due to I don't know what the committee saw, you know, when they voted, but there's neither here nor there. But you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like CJ has been. I'm not gonna say he's been underplayed or undermined. He just hasn't gotten the respect that he should have at this stage of his career.
Do you think? I can see that argument for last season also, because I also think you could argue last year that Bryce Young wasn't even the best player on his team.
Will Anderson was.
Will was dominant last year.
No one could stop Will Anderson last year at all.
Do you think people look at Ohio State and just say, well, he's that good because of the receivers he plays with?
I think people look at Ohio State as the quarterback bust league school. Because if you think about it, they've produced at Ohio State great quarterbacks. JT Barrett, who was before Barrett?
Well, you go all the way back. So you go back to Troy Smith,
right?
But he wasn't an NFL prospect.
What name you for the past? I'm gonna say 10 years. The past 10 years, who has been a quarterback that has been successful from Ohio State?
There has not been one.
There has not been one. So he has a stigma right now. He falls up under the category of Ohio State quarterbacks.
But to be honest, Alabama hadn't produced one since Joe Namath until Tua. And that's primarily because of the style that they played for years.
And honestly, I'm not going to say Tua. Like Tua is in a situation in Miami where his life is on the line.
That's true. But if you think about it, I mean, if you put them in comparison with Ohio State, I mean, Tua has been exponentially more successful than anything Ohio State has. But my point is Alabama hasn't produced a great quarterback in years either. They've been able to win because if you look at what they were putting in the league, number one, they were putting guys in the trenches in the league. Yeah, you put an O lineman and a D lineman in the league, you're gonna win. And then you look at the Mark Ingrams, you look at the Derrick Henrys, and then they hit this run of receivers. Who would start with Amari or Julio? Amari,
Julio. Julio.
Was it Amari then Julio or Julio then Amari? Because it was one. It was those two, and then
it was Julio. It was Julio then Amari.
Julio first. So yeah. Julio, Amari, then Calvin Ridley. Then you went with the firm of Ruggs, Judy, and Smith. And then Jalen Hurts flashed, and he went to Oklahoma, and then you got Tua, and now you got Bryce. But the quarterback run in Alabama is very, very recent.
Now here's my question: would you consider Jalen an Alabama quarterback or Oklahoma quarterback?
I would consider him an Alabama quarterback. He spent more time there.
Okay, understood.
And quite frankly, I think that year he sat, and he's even said it, that year he sat behind Tua made him a better quarterback. He just got to throw the ball more at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Because if Lincoln and produced Heisman Trophy winners, but they haven't really set the league on fire.
Yeah, because both of them right now are in my opinion divas. Because Baker he cries, and Kyler Murray just Kyler Murray. Like, I don't. I'm not gonna say this in a disrespectful way, but I don't think Kyler Murray is really that good. Kyler Murray, when he was at Oklahoma, he just had great receivers, and he was faster than most. He was faster than the front 7,
Mhm.
and he could outrun or maneuver past the secondary.
Baker is a guy that he's proven you can be good with, but he's like about 60% of the quarterbacks in the league that he probably should not have been picked number 1. And I think that and the attitude and the commercials are kind of why he got more flack than, in my opinion, he deserved in Cleveland. But they went to the playoffs and won the division with Baker Mayfield. Now, their conditions. Everybody got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
The defense has to be outstanding. You need a top 5 run game. You need a Jarvis Landry and an Odell Beckham at receiver. Like, you're not going to win with Baker with an average team.
Well,
so he can be a piece on a very good roster, but he's not a world beater. Like, to me,
we're not gonna say that Odell Beckham, because when Odell was in Cleveland, he didn't do nothing.
He did a little bit before he got hurt, and then before he became Odell. But like, to me, like, Baker Mayfield under the right conditions can be Jake Delhomme. Jake Delhomme got to a Super Bowl. Under the right conditions, he could be Brad Johnson. Brad Johnson got to a Super Bowl.
But okay. Wait.
Here's okay. My larger point is in the NFL, there are very few quarterbacks who can overcome their team's shortcomings. Everyone's not Peyton Manning. Like, Peyton Manning won for over a decade despite having a mediocre defense. Everybody's not, I'll go old school, everybody's not John Elway or Brett Favre, who played, like, Elway didn't win Super Bowls until he had 2 Hall of Fame players and 2 guys who I think should be considered to be Hall of Famers. He played with Terrell Davis and Shannon Sharp. Personally, I think Rod Smith's a Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
Just look at the numbers. And Ed McCaffrey's on the border. And then also, the defense was better. But those 4 Super Bowls that he lost, I'm old enough to remember all 4 of them Super Bowls. John Elway put the Broncos on his back and drugged them to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Brett Favre went to 2 Super Bowls. Brett Favre may have a Hall of Fame skill player. Brett Favre drugged the Packers to those 2. Now, he did have Reggie White and Sean Jones playing defense. He had pretty good defenses. But there are very few quarterbacks who do that.
Yeah.
In the NFL. Like, as great as Pat Mahomes has had great players around him. Now, what he's proven is when those players have moved on and been traded, he's still great.
Yeah.
But there are not many quarterbacks who can do that. And one thing, and I'm gonna talk about this at length when we start talking about the draft. People need to stop looking for the anomalies and just go with the norm. Like, stop you. If you're a bad team, you need players. Don't sell your draft capital for a quarterback and put them on a bad roster, because you may ruin them.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the draft capital, because it's a quarterback who I thought was going to enter the draft into the portal, and now is headed to Notre Dame.
That was one of my breaking news. Listen, wake up to echoes. Things are great in South Bend. Not only did we play and win in one of the best bowl games of the season, beating South Carolina, coming back to beat South Carolina in the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl.
That was a good game.
Sam Hartman is on his way to South Bend, Indiana.
Hey,
shout the volley cheer on high.
Listen, that is going to be a great move for Coach Freeman and his staff. Because Hartman, he's the quarterback, and Notre Dame got weapons. Hey,
I was going to say, and something's happened the last couple games.
Yeah.
These wide receivers have learned to get open. Now, it could be because they played USC's and South Carolina's defenses.
But still, they got open. So can they carry it over to next year with a better quarterback?
And if I'm not mistaken, Notre Dame's got 2 top 150 wide receivers coming in.
Yep.
They in the hunt. We hunting next season.
It's gonna be interesting.
Man, I wish Colorado. We hunting next season.
It's gonna be interesting. So real quick, y'all. You know, I know y'all be like, well, where y'all segments that we finna hop in. It's gonna be a real. This show gonna be a real quick show because it's not a lot we can talk about, but it's a lot we can talk about. But but anyway, y'all get the gist. So we're gonna hop into On the Yard real quick. You know what I'm saying? Professor got an interesting topic. We're gonna chop it up for a good few minutes. And Professor, talk to him. Let us know what we're talking about on the yard today.
Okay, before we get on the yard, this was the other breaking news. I just read this before we got on. The NCAA, there are sources that are saying the NCAA is investigating Michigan for possible violations during COVID. That there were some dead periods where students were not supposed to be on campus, and quite possibly some coaches let some students on campus. So I do have a question, because we've been here before. We were here before when Chip Kelly was at Oregon, and when Pete Carroll was at USC. And everyone has already said the Broncos, the Colts, and the Panthers, and I know specifically the Panthers, have contacted Jim Harbaugh. Would an NCAA investigation expedite Harbaugh back to the NFL? Or are these violations not serious enough?
Okay, one, we already know how Harbaugh is. He is a phenomenal coach. He's a great coach. He's one of the few coaches that I've seen be successful in both the NFL and NCAA. Do I think he's going to make that jump? I don't know. Because you got to look at it. He's going into a situation, all three teams, the Broncos, Colts, and Carolina, in a rebuilding stage. Mm-hmm. Do he want to take on a rebuilding? And because now we already know how the NFL works. You go, if a coach is hired within the rebuilding phase, they have a short leash, but they have a long leash at the same time. If you're not seeing, productivity and positive changes within the first 2 seasons, you might be out. If you're not going from a 5-7 team to a 7-7 team in year 1, and then potentially competing for a wild card in year 2, organizations nowadays have very short leashes.
But isn't Harbaugh the guy to do that though?
Okay, let's think about this.
So
let's think about the three teams you named: Broncos, Colts, Carolina. Do they have the money to spend?
That I don't know.
So that's my thing.
I would say if I'm GM, I probably wouldn't touch Denver. Number one, they got a lot of their salary tied up in Russell Wilson. I personally think Russell Wilson is cooked. And I thought he was cooked this last year in Seattle. Went back and of course, I'm not an avid NFL watcher, but somebody put up his numbers his last season in Seattle. So I went and did a little checking. A lot of those numbers were put up when they were losing pretty bad.
Yeah.
I don't know about the Colts, but I do think the Panthers have money. But if we look at coach going all the way back to the University of San Diego, he rebuilt that program. Then he went to Stanford and he rebuilt that program. You do know the hot mess the 49ers were when he went there. They were a mess.
But the 49ers spent money.
And Harbaugh helped them spend it responsibly.
Correct.
So he had a hand in. Michigan was a hot mess when he got there.
But Michigan NFL teams are grown men.
That's true.
College are kids, and you can as Jim Harbaugh, he can go in and sell a dream to those kids. Say, hey, I made it to the Super Bowl multiple times. You know what I'm saying? I've reached the pinnacle that a lot of coaches can't say that they've done. So
he can say the same thing in an NFL locker room now. And also keep in mind, Harbaugh played, and that still plays a lot in the NFL locker room.
True.
So
true.
And if you go back to San Francisco, he left because he was having issues. He rubbed a lot of people in the front office the wrong way. It wasn't the players. The players loved him. It was the people in the front office that he was having issues with. And it was basically when Michigan came, he looked at them and they were like, well, we ain't going to stop you from going if you want to go.
Right.
And he was like, well, then fine, I'll leave. So I found that interesting. I got one more piece of breaking news. Former Arkansas, Atlanta Falcon, and Louisville head coach. Let me also include Central Arkansas head coach Bobby Petrino, in classic Bobby Petrino fashion, has left UNLV at the altar, and he going with Jimbo.
You can tell what that sounds like to me.
That sounds like content to me, buddy.
That sounds like content. That sounds like Jimbo, you on the hot seat.
Jimbo ain't on the hot seat.
Man, you finna bring in Bobby Petrino as your offensive coordinator. Man, if A&M have another season like they had this year, Jimbo is on the hot seat.
So if they fired Jimbo at the end of next season without cause, somebody got to write an $85 million check. Who writing that check, JT? I know it's A&M and I know it's oil money, but I just you know the old saying, just because you can don't mean you should. I don't see anybody writing that check. But
here's my thing though. When Jimbo came to that school, he made promises that they were going to get to national title. They were going to be competitive year in and year out in the SEC West. He had a good year, first year. He had a good year, second year, and he's been declining. He has yet to perform in the way that they thought he was going to perform it, like he did at Florida State. And as a booster, yes, if I can get to the NIL has brought in players to Texas A&M that if it wasn't for the NIL, they wouldn't be there. But the NIL has brought them in.
That's true. But there's always something you have to consider when you talk about firing coaches. And that
is the buyouts.
But not just that buyout. Who else is the university paying not to coach? And I read somewhere, if somebody was crazy enough to write that check, the Texas A&M athletic department will be paying close to $100 million in buyout money for coaches across their athletic department. I don't see that. To me, there are three coaches for at least the next 3 to 5 years the schools are stuck with, come what may. Jimbo's one, Cristobal is one, there's another one, and Mel Tucker's the third. They all got big guaranteed money contracts with $50+ million buyouts. No one's writing those checks. They are stuck. Now here's the thing. So before my mama retired, my mama sold jewelry. And so growing up, I used to watch the Beverly Hillbillies. Right? So my mama, there used to be this display case. And it used to be called Beverly Hills Gold. But it wasn't as expensive as the other gold jewelry in the jewelry case. So I asked my mom, I said, but that's Beverly Hills Gold. I said, and that's my mama said, do you know why they call it that? I said, no. She said, because it's fool's gold. They just gave it a fancy name so people would buy it. And that's what Jimbo Fisher was. Jimbo Fisher is a 500 coach without Jameis Winston. And Scott Woodward, who knew Jimbo when Jimbo was an assistant at LSU, because Woodward was, I believe, an assistant AD at that time at LSU, went and did two things to screw over Texas A&M. Number one, he got him away from Florida State, and Florida State was tired of him at that point. And some of that was also justified on Jimbo's part. Jimbo wanted a bigger investment in the football program, and Florida State didn't want to make that investment. I get it. That's fine. But Jimbo's average without Jameis. Just look at all his records without Jameis Winston. He is crispy. I'm sorry, but he's a 500 coach without Jameis, and they got fooled by that national championship and the playoff appearance. And it was Beverly Hills gold, man. It was fool's gold. And now they stuck. And now they stuck. They stuck. Maybe Petrino helps.
They stuck.
Maybe Petrino helps because Petrino will tell Jimbo, no, Jimbo, we ain't doing that on 3rd and 6. We're doing this.
But here's my thing, though. So they have lost a lot of players in the portal.
But
a lot of players.
But none of those players were key contributors from last year's team. The only player, and I wrote about him, the only player, if I'm A&M, that I would be, talking about my Wi-Fi. I try to fix that, Crispy. The only player, if I am A&M, that I would have been concerned about losing was LJ Johnson. Because he was a top 70 running back who didn't play much because Devon Achane just, if there's anything that they did well last year, man, Devon Achane balled out last season. But he's a guy who could have been the next in line when Achane went to the league.
Yeah.
Because I watched some of his all 22 highlight tape. He's the real deal. And now he going down the street to SMU. So let's get to the on the yard question. All right, JT, you putting on your AD hat.
It's on. Hey, Crispy, leave my man Wi-Fi alone, man.
You got your AD hat. You got your AD hat. And you got to go hire a football coach.
Okay.
Are you a big game hunter? We just mentioned one. Scott Woodward went and got Jimbo from Florida State. We got Brian Kelly from Notre Dame, come down to LSU. Or are you going to make the more prudent hire? Would you take the interim tag off the interim coach like Clemson did Dabo, or Georgia Tech just did Brent Pry? Like we all thought Wisconsin was going to do to Jim Leonard, but they went and got Luke Fickell. What are you doing? You going to get Ed Reed? You're going to get Prime? You're going to get Eddie George? You gonna go Prime Fickell from Cincinnati? What you doing?
What school am I at?
You are at MVP University.
All right.
And y'all got a little bread.
How did we do last season? Is MVP University the Fighting Penguins? Are we a consistent 500 team, making it to a playoff? Making it to a bowl game? Are we winning 6 games every year?
Your floor is 8 wins, but you have a national championship ceiling.
I'm not making a splash high. I'm going with someone who is proven. I'll go with someone like it's not a popular name, and he hasn't done much at Penn State. But I'll go with James Franklin just to get me to. Will I do James Franklin? I'll do. I won't do a splash hire. I won't do nothing like a Coach Prime or a Eddie George or a Ray Lewis type hire. I'm doing something.
So I would argue that James Franklin would be a splash hire. Because you ain't passed your SATs, Chris. Yes,
you ain't passed the SAT.
Maybe we'll put you on Prop 48. But
he scored high enough on the SAT.
Yeah, I would argue in the Power 5, you get a sitting head coach. He's won a conference championship. He has went to, is that his second Rose Bowl win?
Yeah. Now, if I'm hiring for MVP University, James Franklin will be a coach I'll go after. I would look at what's the OC for USC? I just had his name in my head. Hold on. Who's Lincoln? Oh my God.
Graham Harrell's in West Virginia now.
I forgot his name, but the OC from USC and Coach Beamer from Southern South Carolina. That's who I would go. Those would be my three. My top three. If neither one of those went through, give me I would. Here's two names that I feel like could potentially do something. Will Muschamp.
Again?
Yeah. I would give.
I'm looking at that gator behind you, and you'd still do it.
I would give Coach Muschamp another chance.
Okay. I'll say this about Muschamp.
And McElwain.
I feel like Muschamp got a bit of a raw deal at South Carolina. Only because, man, what Spurrier did at South Carolina unfairly raised the expectations at that school.
Absolutely. Now Shane Beamer, he's what he's doing now is totally different. Shane Beamer is now,
and what I hope they understand is what Shane's done. They're close to their ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't, maybe once every 3 or 4 years they can cycle up and win 10 games, but they're about close to their ceiling.
Yeah. Now, a coach that I would at least interview and see if he wants to do it. My guy Dan Mullen. I would bring Dan Mullen to MVP University.
You should.
I would bring him. I would bring him in. Let him. I would give him full access to the portal. Coach Mullen, do what you got to do.
So my brother's a Purdue grad, which is why we always talk trash every time Purdue plays Notre Dame. But he called me. He actually asked. He asked me about Dan Mullen, and I think Ryan Walters was I'm shocked that they made that choice.
Yeah.
But so my brother went to Purdue in the 90s. I went in the late 90s. Hashtag humble brag. I interviewed Drew Brees, his last year at Purdue. When I was at Wabash, our quarterback was working out with Drew up in West Lafayette. But this guy by the name of Joe Tiller, who won a whole lot of games at Purdue with Drew Brees and Kyle Orton and those guys, doing something that had not been done back then, spreading the football all around. And I thought Dan Mullen would have been great at Purdue. I really do. But I listened to the AP college football podcast this morning on my way to work, and they had Dan Mullen on there breaking down the game. Dan's so happy doing TV. Like he basically
absolutely
he was because he asked him, so how's the transition been from coaching? He's like, man, I love it. He said, I hardly miss my kids' games now. It's less stress, but I still get to be around the game. Dan, and he's so good on TV.
He's really good. Like, and he's one of the few coaches. I'm not gonna take nothing away from Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer will be another coach I will interview, but I won't take nothing from Urban Meyer. But Dan Mullen, how he actually analyzes and makes us see the game, and he does it in a different manner. You know what I'm saying?
And
so It's really interesting.
He did the color for, I don't remember which bowl game, but he was even good doing commentary on the bowl game. I like him, and I like Chris Peterson. He's really good on TV as well. Those are probably two of my favorite former coaches. So if I put on my AD hat, I don't know if I necessarily have a coach type, except for I want a guy who's coached. So I'm looking for 3 fundamental characteristics, and I go 3, 2, 1. Number 3, can you raise money? That's one of those unknown things about being a coach of any sport in the university athletics. You got to be able to raise money for your program. Can you get boosters to give money? Number 2, can you recruit? Do you have a reputation as a recruiter? And my number 1, can you hire staff? Because I give you some money to hire staff. Can you go out and get the right guys? I don't care if, like, listen, Ogeron was never a coordinator, and he won national championship at LSU. Dabo was never a coordinator. A lot of guys who have never been coordinators. Prime had never been a coordinator at the college level and did a great job recruiting and putting together a staff. Those 3 things. I think if you got those 3 things, you can be a good head coach. I would let my fan base a little bit influence who I go after. I thought about the question because there's some ADs who just want to make the big time hire. And I thought about Scott Woodward, who's the AD at LSU, who's one of those guys. But then I also look at, and his name escapes me right now, the AD of Georgia Tech, who went and just told Brent Key, hey man, interim tag off. And it's always like a 50-50 proposition. But a perfect example, great segue to the game. The AD at TCU won a Sonny Dykes. And look how that turned out.
So, and that's a good segue too. Good set point. If an AD make a splash move and it doesn't work out, now we're looking at you as an AD for hiring him.
I'll be looking for another job. I'm gone.
That's why the coaches I named, they are solid coaches and they have a solid track record to where 3 to 5 years we see a difference in our program. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And don't fool around and try to make a splash hire in like 2 different sports and it don't work out.
Right. For instance, Georgia had they brought in Tom Crean for basketball when they hired Kirby. Coach Tom, he did his thing at Indiana, but he suffered at Georgia horribly.
I'm gonna tell you, I am shocked that Ray Anderson still got a job at Arizona State.
Yeah,
because he went and got Bobby Hurley, and that ain't worked in basketball. And then he went and got Herman Edwards, and that didn't work in football. And somehow the Sun Devils still employ that man. I don't know how he still got a job.
I don't know either, but it's a lot of ADs that I have a lot of questions about. And you know what? I think one episode we're just gonna talk about coaches and ADs, how they met. You know what I'm saying? That'd be a good little take. But guys, y'all know what time it is as we come to the end of the show. It's the pick'ems. It's the film session. We're gonna do a quick pick 'em up, quick commentary, and we're gonna be it, guys. This is gonna be the show before the national title game. So, Professor, a quick 30-second drop. Who you got and why?
So I've turned this thing all over. I wasn't wrong about the Ohio State Georgia game. Because the one condition that cost Ohio State the game, I was right about, and that was the secondary. I was completely wrong about TCU, Michigan. So I looked at something. And I know you said 30 seconds, but I'm about to take 45. The Georgia Bulldogs potentially have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 early round draft picks. You define early round draft picks real simple. Are they going within the first 50 picks?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, and that's like if Keely Ringo decides to come out, he's a redshirt sophomore, so he can come out. They have 6 and maybe 1 or 2 potential late round draft picks like a Kieras Jackson. And then they have a future, probably early round draft pick if A.D. Mitchell can stay healthy. And you saw them jets that he had against Ohio State.
He can fly.
Yeah, he's the real deal. And I'm not and that Brock Bowers is a sophomore, if y'all ain't know. And so is future Patriots slot receiver Lad McConkey. So, but then looking at TCU, they might have 3 early round draft picks. And I would say like Mark Perry, D. Winters, and Max Duggan, who are all coming out, maybe they're late round draft picks to priority free agents. So the talent definitely is in favor of Georgia. But
Correct.
man, I give TCU a puncher's chance. And you mentioned this about Keely Ringo, and you questioned if he could stay with Marvin Harrison. And Marvin Harrison was cooking him. Until he got hurt. And that hit was almost like Karate Kid, sweep the leg, Johnny.
Yeah.
Take that. I'm not saying Coach Kirby would never do that. I'm joking, y'all. I'm joking. But can Keely stay with Quentin Johnston?
I don't know, bro.
Okay. This is what I think. I'm going to pick Georgia for 2 reasons. Number one, I've said since the beginning of this season, when I noticed Alabama's receivers couldn't separate, that this was Georgia's natty to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sticking with them. But also, I do think that the talent that Georgia has is going to overwhelm TCU. TCU is going to give them all they can handle for about 2.5 quarters. And I think the difference here is going to be TCU's O-line against Georgia's D-line. And I think Georgia has too much of an advantage there, and I don't think they're going to be able to protect Max Duggan. And yeah, Max Duggan ran against Michigan's linebackers. He ain't running against Georgia's linebackers. So now I will say this: Georgia's a 12.5-point favorite. I think TCU's going to cover, but barely. I think maybe Georgia by 10, 35-25-ish.
Okay. Here we go.
Is he going to do it? He going to do it.
Georgia going to win the national title.
Okay.
It's going to be closer than you expect. I think TCU is going to compete all the way into the 4th quarter, and Georgia defense just got too much depth. I think Georgia defense is going to be too overpowering, and they won't be able to. They will be able to manhandle them all the way through, and then 4th quarter they're just going to overpower them. And Georgia defense is going to win this game. I'm gonna say 48-35, okay. Georgia.
And I'm gonna tell you, Brock Bowers is getting off.
Absolutely.
And Ohio State had the guys to cover him. I don't know if TCU has the guys to cover him.
They don't.
Even if Darnell Washington doesn't play, because he was in a walking boot post game. But I don't like, because I'm thinking of D. Winters, and I'm thinking of Mark Strong safety, but D. Winters of a blitzer in an offensive scheme. I don't know if he can cover, and I just don't think Mark Perry is athletic enough to cover Brock Bowers. And I think that's going to be the key.
It's going to be interesting, man. Like
yeah.
We didn't expect TCU to be here, but they're here. So yeah, we'll find out come Monday.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, hey guys, thank y'all for tuning into the episode of MVP University, man. And Continue to like, share, subscribe, follow us on all social media platforms at _MVP University. Hey, 2023 is gonna be a good year for us, man. We got a lot of content coming out. We got a lot of big stuff coming up for you guys. So continue to rock with us week in, week out. We're gonna give y'all some good stuff to look at. I'm your boy MVP JT, Professor Pryor, my main man, signing out. Later. Yo, Professor.